Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lawyerlifter podcast. And I am so excited because we've talked about the lawyer and kind of the business, but this is one woman who is near and dear to my heart. We've been together through this crazy powerlifting and nutrition side of who I am for over 6 years, and she is a force. And I will tell you that she actually inspired me to start up my own business. As you guys know, that's Uplift Law. She did that way before I even was brave enough to do it. And this is Laura Sinclair, and her business is one-on-one nutrition, but also an amazing topic that just doesn't really get talked about in our world, in the athletic world, and in the female world as well. It's called Restore and Reclaim Postnatal Blueprint. Hi, Laura.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So we go back, and here's another thing that's crazy. So it's just, I want to have this conversation with you, but just pop in, because literally I feel like our lives were parallel, and we were just also, you were helping me, but we were interacting and we were looking at each other what are you doing? What am I doing? And it was, it's been amazing. So let me go back to the beginning. You started with me. I found Laura at a very sweet spot in my life. I had just gone from 180 pounds to about 140, 145. That's still a significant amount of weight that I managed to lose on my own, just basically joining a weight loss gym and introducing high intensity interval training to my body. And I was I really want more. I want to take my body to the next level. And at the time, this was circa 2015, Laura was working for a pretty well-known corporate nutrition programming place called Working Against Gravity. And it just so happened that they hooked me up with my nutrition coach, which was Laura. And so she was working there, and then we were so successful together. She was so everything that, I really feel like you went even above and beyond what your corporate gig there was, because I checked in with her. It's supposed to be once a week, but mind you, this was all remote, right? And I just want everybody to know, we're so close, but so far away. Literally, Laura is in Canada. That is where she is. But through the power of social media, phone, internet, I literally have this deep relationship that I can't even, I'm going to attempt to describe, because she's been with me through so many significant changes of my life. So you helped me get from that 140 range, and then all of a sudden, I don't even know what it was. A few months in, I was loving you. I was feeling great. I was shedding. And then I get this notification that you're leaving Working Against Gravity. And I was like, no, I'm done. I literally, because of this woman, I quit Working Against Gravity. And I was like, I'm going to follow you. What are you doing? I cannot work with anybody. And she told me, okay, just wait. I'm going to do something. And I'm like, I don't know what she's going to do, but I'm following her. So you take it from there. Cause that was crazy. You just were I'm done. I'm doing my own thing. And I was like, oh shit. I don't know what she's doing, but I'm going.
Yeah, it's sort of funny to look back at that time, because it does feel like a lifetime ago. You talk about the 6 years that we've spent together. I think they've been really transformative years for both of us. So certainly that was a really different time in my life, which thinking back feels like 2 chapters ago almost. But yeah, I was super, super honored and glad that you wanted to stick with me, and being able to play that role for you, and in turn having you support me in many different ways as well over the last 6 years has really been a gift.
Yeah, so like you took something and that's like what it was. It wasn't the name. It wasn't like, okay, Laura is part of this organization. It was like you yourself that I wanted to follow. And that just keeps, and I've seen your business like transform because you guys, like Laura does nutrition coaching one-on-one, but like for some time you also were you had your own CrossFit box in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, we just closed the gym in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was just it, like because the business was just not like you wanted to go a different way, or what was going on?
No, really it was a combination of things. I mean, here in Canada, how they're handling COVID related lockdowns are a little bit different than in the States. I'm not fully versed in what's happening all across the US, but here in Canada, we're actually down in Ontario where I live. We're in a second lockdown now. So all gyms were locked down from March to July of 2020. And we made it through that lockdown. During that time when they locked everything down, I was 8 weeks pregnant.
Oh my god.
So, I got pregnant with my son in January when my business was thriving, and I was in a place where I would be able to have staff cover for me. And then we closed down from March to July. I was due in October. So we were able to sort of come back for a few months. And then I had my baby in October, and we were having staff there covering for me. But the cost of running the gym, because of COVID and because of the fear that was generated and because of the closure, the costs were just so high that the only way for us to be profitable would be for me to physically go back in and work in my business. But being, 3, 4 weeks postpartum at the time, that was just not an option. And then in December, they locked down again, and we're still actually in lockdown here in Ontario. So we just basically had to make a decision, my husband and I, for our family over the gym. We got sort of put in a position where the options were put my 3-week-old in care to go back and work at the gym, or close. And we chose my 3-week-old, which is not a
Yeah.
decision I have any regrets about. It's just,
No.
been a really it's a shitty time to be a woman, a mother in business due to COVID. And I mean, there's a whole other layers to that as well, but that's sort of where that decision stemmed from. So I'm definitely shifting. I've always done the combination of brick and mortar and online. And really in the last few months, I've been sort of faced with, well, no, now you have to do it all online. And where I live, that's really the only option right now anyway.
Yeah. But alongside that, I mean, you have your one-on-one coaching. And when I say like one-on-one nutrition coaching, like, so Laura does like, she has coaching for athletes and whoever. But then, so that you made that transition, but Laura also tapped into it, this prenatal postnatal care. And all of a sudden, like, I had no idea. Like, you guys, like, I've been running in the athletic sphere for a long time, and I had never ever seen something like that until one day I was looking at Instagram and like Laura started like talking about it, and I'm like, what is this? And it's like, well, duh, like female athletes, like they get pregnant, but like nobody, it's like back in the old days, like, the woman like goes away and then
Yeah.
comes back or something. And then
Yeah.
it's like, and then she's like an athlete again, or whatever. Like, we don't, it just happens. And then Laura was out there like talking about it because you literally were going through it. And like, I forgot to mention the key component here with how Laura's able to speak so well as to my nutrition journey. And it went from weight loss to body recomposition to just like the way that I had competed. I competed first under the United States Powerlifting Association with a 24-hour weigh-in. So that triggered Laura to create a nutrition plan that fit my training, but also when it was time to weigh in for any competitions related to USPA, like she was able to get me to a position where I would hit that platform as full and as powerful as possible because because of the food portion. And then I moved into USAPL, which is like a 2 hour weigh in, which was a whole other set of challenges. But Laura is an athlete, like you guys. Like she's a CrossFit athlete and she's a weightlifter. So she knows very intimately the body of a woman athlete and also the body of a woman athlete, wife, mom, business owner. So, anyway, like what I really wanted to talk about that because the way that your business I saw from, like as the viewer and as your client, everything that you went through, you genuinely embraced and you put it in your business. So, like, when you got pregnant, and I was like really inundated in the competitive like world, like this woman, even though she got pregnant the first time, she carried me through nationals. Like, I feel like you just gave birth or you were gonna give birth, and I was gonna hit the national platform for the first time.
Yeah, I think you're right.
One-on-one coaching, and then all of a sudden you embarked upon this like huge life event, and then you're like, you know what, it's time to talk about something no one talks about.
Was a competitive swimmer growing up. I owned a CrossFit gym, like you said, into weightlifting. I did triathlon. So I've always identified as an athlete, and a huge part of who makes me me, or what makes me me, is athletics, so sport. And when I got pregnant, it was sort of like this very strange feeling of, well, who am I now? And am I still an athlete? Am I still able to do these things that I want to do? And during pregnancy, there are a fair amount of restrictions that you need to do. I didn't do any of them because I didn't know. And then same thing postpartum, after you have a baby. Birth is a pretty major event. But again, as an athlete with my athlete brain, I just did what I'd always done, which unfortunately wasn't the right thing, not for my baby, but wasn't the right thing for me. And I ended up with what I'll call sort of postpartum injuries, or contraindications from my pregnancy that I had to deal with after, while I was postpartum, and things that I needed to repair in my body, functionally, not just aesthetically, but functionally in terms of how my body works. And the same thing with nutrition. I remember when I worked in other situations for nutrition, we didn't work with pregnant women, and we didn't work with women that were breastfeeding. And that just didn't feel right for me either. And so I think for me, I identified that if I was having these issues, if I was having issue finding the right information, if I was having issue learning how to actually feel my body for these things that I was asking it to do, that I couldn't be alone. There must
Yeah.
be other women that feel this. And I think, to your point earlier about, women just disappearing and coming back, I think the biggest change is actually that more women are into athleticism now than ever before. And more women want to be strong. They want to lift weights. And all of that is amazing. But during pregnancy and after your baby, in the postpartum window, there are things that we need to be aware of and things that we need to do so that eventually you can return to that full-fledged 100% version, athletic version of yourself. But there is that window that we sort of need to work through. So for me, it was a business opportunity that I recognized that there was a hole for, but it was also something that came from heart, because it was something that I had experienced myself and really struggled with during my first pregnancy and after my first pregnancy. Having just gone through it again, I now have my son will be 4 months old next week. It's a very different experience, but still coming from a place of heart, because I meet women all the time, athletic or not, that really, really struggle in that window.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because it's true. Like as an athlete, when you talked about postpartum injury, right? Like, but the athlete brain, like if I'm if I'm like achy or sore or whatever, like we are just made to think like, okay, like back it down, but like keep going.
Hmm.
Like that's the athlete in you is just like, okay, like my body will adapt, my body will rise, like my body is like, it will do what is needed to get me there. And so I think what you're saying, like, especially with working with you, I've noticed too, is like when you really pay attention to your athlete and to all the factors, like people don't realize like the external factors like your life all play into how your body is gonna move the weights, gonna react to any kind of physical stimulus, and also like how the body's going to bloat or absorb retain water. I mean, and that's all like what I appreciate about Laura is like literally she'll ask like what's going on in my head, what's going on in my life, what's going on like in my body, and it's a whole like head to toe wellness assessment. And I think that does carry on to the pregnant athlete. Like it's true when I comb through these women who are athletes who have families, there's like a hole as to like all of a sudden they're back to where they're at, but they don't really talk about like how it was for 9 months and then whatever it took to like get back to like running or like CrossFit or whatever. It's just like a blank. And I think that, like, for sure, there's so many women who need to know, like, when I'm pregnant, like, what do I need to do? Because to me, if you had not come around, like, I learned a lot from you. I wouldn't know, like, being 35 and kind of like flirting with this idea of family starting, like, okay, well, it's not just like let's like try and have a baby. It's like a lot more. It's like, okay, like what can you do and what you can't do, and then also like how do you prepare for the aftermath? Because like you're right, like when you go through labor and you put your body through all of that, it's not like a competition where you have like 3-4 hours and you're just doing maximal lifts. Like that's like a very and then that's it. Like
Yeah.
this is something completely different. And I definitely like I just like say like kudos to you, like seriously, like I've seen it, I've literally seen it from start to not even finish, but I've seen your business just like grow and become like a following because of what you put out there in the universe.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, it's, as as a business owner, it is never easy, but I think that's one thing that has always been true to me is just I've tried to stay myself throughout all of it and tried to deliver material and deliver, what hits home for me. I have a hard time, I'm pretty selective about who I work with now. I get to do that, which is lucky for me, but
Yeah.
I need to work with people that are coming from a similar place or, aligned with the type of people that I want to work with. So, it's been awesome. I think you must have been client number one when I went out on my own. So
Yeah, because I was waiting. I
yeah,
literally was like, I was at the so like back then, like I'm trying to remember the year or what was going on, but it was like one day, like it was just about like losing the weight, and then all of a sudden, I think I told you right before you left working against gravity that I think I want to like try and power lift and do this thing
yeah.
like a real thing. And you were like, okay, oh my god, let's do it. Yeah, I was, and that's the thing, like, and that's what I always like tell people, whether they're starting out or, trying to recapture a new client or recapture a certain demographic. It's like authenticity, like
Yeah.
your own innate experiences projected to everybody else. Like that will resonate with people because you're definitely not unique in that sense. Like if you're going through it, someone else is going through it and they need help. And I'm a big proponent. It's like I've been with you for so long because I literally recognize like I don't know what I'm doing, like you do. Like,
I would hope
yeah.
so after all of this time that I that I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one interesting thing that particularly for postpartum women and pregnant women is, especially in the athletic space, oftentimes we're looking to these professional examples, right? Somebody that's, somebody like me, yeah, I've been an athlete my whole life, but I'm not a professional athlete. And so we look at certain people in CrossFit and weightlifting that are getting pregnant and they're having this return to athleticism that looks really, really easy. Oftentimes you're not seeing the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes because it's never easy to start, but they also have access to so many things that other women don't have access to. Sort of ordinary women like us don't have access to, right?
Yeah.
They have access to the professional coaches and the professional, nutrition and the all these other resources, the physios, the whatever it is that they need. They have the tools, but oftentimes for people like you and I, in order to find the information, we need to be coming from a position of having an injury or struggling in some way that we're actively seeking it out. Whereas if you're a professional, you're kind of just given that information and you get all the support from the jump. And I think often when we compare ourselves to those people that have maybe, bounced back, which is my least favorite term in the world, very quickly, it's because they've had access to things that most people just don't have access to.
Yeah. And that's like really something that I get upset about, like this portrayal of women like in social media sphere, like that. So with you, like I want everybody to know, like Laura has never taken a certain kind of food away from me. Like meaning like we've never done a weird diet of anything. Like we've
No.
never done a paleo, we've never done a keto, we've never done literally it's just been like homegrown protein, carbs, fat. Yeah, like and it's carbs, like literally that's it. And and also I learned how to eat, like how to like go towards, volume carbs. So it's like that weight loss like from 180 to like now like walking around like at 116, like that was all just very like working with someone who recognizes the like roller coaster and just sticking to like the basics, because like what helps you just maintain is just that like something simple stupid,
Yeah.
because like if you're doing all these weird like oh I'm only going to eat like fats and like zero carbs, like that's not sustainable really. Than just like feeling your body, recognizing like how you literally feel and like the external factors, that takes you a long way. But like you talk about how women get portrayed, and it sucks because you always see like the after, like the after picture, but you don't see like all of the shitty moments that of working towards that after.
Yeah.
And it's like the same with the nutrition and the same with the pregnant athlete. Like I just, when you were talking off the top of my head, I was thinking Serena Williams. She's an athlete and then she got pregnant and now she's an athlete again. And it's like there's her body is still like amazing and she's still like killing it. Like, oh, this is just like an injury that my body's just gonna bounce back from, because that's what I see.
Hmm.
And that's completely like, yeah, you pretty much uncover it and make it look like what it is. It's ugly, but like there's ways to manage it. Like one of the things that really like frightens me, and I'll just be candid, is like that, yeah, like the loss of, I mean, I've been competing and an athlete for so long. Like, to take some time is like, that's scary. And also just the trauma of your body from, possibly like loose skin or whatever. And you don't see that. And I don't know if it's Photoshop or maybe those like cosmetic, like mommy makeovers where they do tummy tucks and then they like say like, oh, now I'm doing athletic stuff, and it was all because of the athleticism and not with some help from like surgery.
That is what feels scary about pregnancy and postpartum is there's a lot that you can't control, and genetics play a big factor in it, right? So like whether you're going to have stretch marks or loose skin or anything like that, there's a huge genetic component to that. But yeah, it's one of those things like there's no reason why you can't return to athleticism after having a baby. It may just take a little longer for some people than it does others.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot like with your head, right? So like for me, okay, come on, like I'm 4'10". I went from 180 to 116. Like I don't talk about it, but it is like it's kind of like I live with scars. Like so like meaning like I do have stretch marks. I
Mhm.
do have loose skin. But because I lost all that weight. That's just how it is. And like that's just what I look at every day, and I think about that time in my life, and that's kind of like this. I can't do anything about it. Like I lost all this weight. I've got like a loose skin, and
Yeah.
I will never ever have those like chiseled abs. Like I have abs, but I won't have those kinds you see on Instagram or on a magazine because I literally don't have the genetics for that because I've got loose skin from all the weight that I've lost.
Yeah.
Unless I go get cut up and spend a bunch of money to, get those abs. Like it's just something like you deal with.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I think more and more, and I think some of it depends on like what spaces you live in. So for me, I do live in the space with athletes, but I also live in the space with a lot of moms, and I think in the mom space that I live in, these conversations are happening more regularly. These sort of what does this really look like after? And I will say, after having my daughter, I was really lucky. I haven't had stretch marks with either of my babies. And after my daughter, things were still like pretty tight and good. And now after my son, I am going to have loose skin. I mean, my body has stretched and returned twice now. Um, but I think in the athletic space, it's not talked about that much. And there is this sort of fear that exists with female athletes that if all of a sudden I lose this aesthetic, whatever is going on for me, or I end up with stretch marks, that all of this work that I've done is for nothing. And I think there's just so much more to athleticism than just aesthetics, which you and I talk about all the time. But I think for women in general, especially in the athletic world, that conversation just isn't really had enough.
No, and I think this conversation, our conversation right now is so important because like here you are, you were like fuck you to the corporate world. You started your own thing and I was like, "Holy shit." And then you kept going with it, and then you introduced a whole other like situation that's in need, because guess who I'm going to if I ever went down that road? It would be you, and it will be like so rocky
Yeah.
because I think it's like the athlete brain. But you've been making waves because I think that, like I keep saying, it's just what your experience speaks. So I truly appreciate that. Like it's insane, um, what gets put out there for women to like try and be it,
Yeah.
because you can't be that. Like also when we talk about like what is a woman business owner, well, it's not sexy. It's not like it's not it's like it's a lot of like, we were joking. I was like, oh, like we're doing this podcast about badass business women, which we are. We're athletic. Like we, like are doing our thing. And it's not like we look all glammed up. We literally were like, oh, should we comb our hair for this or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of masculine energy for sure. It's good to have balance of both, but yeah, it's being a female business owner is I've done it as brick and mortar. I've done it online. I actually worked in corporate marketing before I became a nutrition coach in automotive. So I have been the female in a male-dominated world for quite some time. But yeah, that is a unique beast.
So would you say that who you reach, like most of your clients are women?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, I do work with a few men, but I tend to speak to women just in terms of the way that I show up tends to speak to women a little bit more. And I think in general, there's just a certain level of comfort for women with me, right? I do work with men. I just don't, men tend to find me. I don't tend to go looking. Usually I'll start working with, the partner and then I'll end up with the husband or something like that. But my preference is to work with women. Um, I think that I can just support them in a way that is a little more meaningful than I can support a male.
Like one of the things about this journey that I keep going with Laura on is like she always like whatever I've gone through some shit, guys. Like I've gone through some shit. It's like, and this woman knows, and she has, I mean, you don't know, but like, it's like, I check in with you like every week, but like, I send little
Like it's
messages
the
here and
bits.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, the food component, the health component is so important. And every obstacle I went through, like you were there to tailor it so that the big health, the big like perspective was always there. And it's amazing when you guys I wish for everybody to find good people in your corner and stick with them because for you, like I watched you, and then I was like, okay, if Laura can do it, I can do it too. And if I'm not dead, then let's just keep going. Like,
Yeah, I didn't actually know that I had inspired you to do that. So I was when you had emailed that to me earlier in the week, I was really honored. That's very very cool. Yeah, I sometimes jump into these things because it just I lead with my heart, and if something feels right, then I'm going to do it. And it doesn't always work out, but yeah, I think why not? Why not me? Why not you?
yeah, and I think that's so genuinely a woman, and I don't mean to say like, oh, women, like I'm not trying to like dichotomize things, but it's like it is like a very woman experience to just be like, like more like taking the environment in and just kind
Yeah.
of going with it versus like it's not as calculated as you know the traditional view of starting a business is like, oh well,
Hmm.
I didn't sit down and I didn't look at graphs and I didn't like look at
Yeah.
like seed money or whatever. I literally, this was happening to me, and it was like, I don't like this, it's shitty,
Hmm.
I have to do this other thing because I value my life and the quality of my life,
Yeah.
so it has to work.
Yeah, and we only have so much energy, right? Like money, you can always make more money, right? But energy, you only have so much of it. So you have to put it in a place that makes sense for you. And that's something that I've really tried to live by is that, walking away from my corporate world and other jobs, like I walked away from lots of guaranteed money, but none of it was worth it because if I'm dumping my energy and I'm putting energy into things that don't serve me, because at the end of the day, it has to serve me, it has to serve my kids, it has to serve my family. And if it doesn't do that, then I'm going to move on to something else.
Yeah, the tolerance for inconvenience like just dissipates.
Yes.
Like I have
Yeah.
zero, like that is so true. It's can be monetized. Like it is
Hmm.
your value. To join me today. I am fucking honored. I mean, seriously. So you guys like check out Laura Sinclair's. I do post about her here and there, but
Yeah.
like now she's a podcast guest and she's killing it. She's killing it on the nutrition side for athletes, killing it for the women who are athletes or not athletes and are trying to just get healthy during pregnancy and after pregnancy. So thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks so much for having me.
You can find this episode and others at lawyerlifter.com or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. For questions or comments, you can contact me on our website, lawyerlifter.com, or find me at Lawyerlifter on Instagram.